great Creator's noble plan turned all things to the good of man, to use them wisely as he can. Then God inspired the craftsman to take the metal, wood, or stone, to shape or temper, carve or hone, to raise the tapering spire on high, to send the airship through the sky, to build the walls that time defy. God bless the honest craftsman. In Bolton Street College of Technology in June 1963, 32 young Irishmen were practicing their crafts. Aidan Halpin from Rash, County Dublin, already the holder of several international awards. Tommy O'Brien, a junior carpenter from Dublin. Two brothers from Galway, James O'Halloran, a senior carpenter, and Richard, a junior joiner. John Gibson, junior cabinet maker, was working with Francis Caulfield, his senior at the same trade. In the electric welding room were Paddy Sands, a junior apprentice, and his counterpart in senior ranks, Charles Rowe. These were some of the boys who would represent Ireland in the 12th International Trade Competitions for Apprentices to be held in Bolton Street College of Technology in July 1963. The event obtained widespread support from trade and industry, and on Taoiseach, Mr. Sean Lemass, visited the boys during their pre-competition work. In his address, on Taoiseach said that 25 years from now, because of world advancement, there would be little room for men without technical skill. This was not the first time Ireland had taken part in these annual competitions, but it was the first time for them to compete on their home ground. This international competition had originated in Spain as a national competition only, but had gradually spread through most of Europe and even to Japan. Mr. Lemass later visited the workshops with Mr. Jack Barry, Director of Organisation, and met Frank Douglas from Waterford and John Joe McDonough, Ireland's representatives in senior and junior turning. Here is Liam Ward, a constructional steelworker. Carol O'Sullivan, senior house wiring. Sean Curry, junior house wiring. Des Mulvaney, senior painting and decorating. Thomas Callan, senior fitting. And from Naas, County Kildare, Daniel Donaghy, junior fitting. Irwin Hutchinson, panel beater from Doon Lera. Dubliner Patrick Carpenter, sheet metal worker. And another Dubliner, Thomas Gray, wood pattern making. Each country submits designs for the competitions in which it will participate, and committees are entrusted with the task of adapting, amending, and finally agreeing on the most suitable design and work materials in each case. These working groups are comprised of officials and technical representatives of the different countries. They come together for the first time a week before the competitions are due to begin, and their meetings provide much healthy argument and not a little diplomacy, as the representatives of each country use all their persuasive powers to have accepted or rejected designs, time schedules, working materials and marking schemes which they think will suit or may provide difficulty for their own apprentices. Finally, the last point is won or conceded, and the groups are ready to report back to a plenary session headed by Senor Albert of the International Secretariat, Madrid. The official approval of the recommendations of the individual working groups by the plenary session is no formality, and the language barrier, although broken down by expert interpreters, remains a time-consuming factor. Each working group presents its drawings to the full meeting, and further discussion follows until everyone understands and accepts each detail of each competition. From woodwork to welding, from machine drawing to milling, from panel beating to plumbing, the debate goes on in an atmosphere of friendly but nevertheless earnest rivalry. When all designs are approved, they are handed over to the draftsman and then to the drawing office, which will make the requisite number of copies available by the start of the competition. Their duties completed for the time being, the foreign and home officials and technical representatives leave Dublin's Intercontinental Hotel on a bus tour. Going southwest from the capital, they pass through the historic town of Cashel, County Tipperary. And along the shores of Lough Derg near Killaloe, County Clare. And then, having passed through Limerick, they come to the centuries-old Bunratty Castle, a few miles outside the Treaty city. Here the reception was in medieval style. Mine hosts were in medieval costume, and the food and drink strictly in accordance with the cuisine of the Middle Ages. But the toast, sláinte go saol, good health and long life, though of medieval vintage, was one facet of the Bunratty visit which has worn well with time. In the dining hall, table etiquette was also according to medieval usage, hence the outsize napkins for the protection of clothing and the cleansing of hands. The atmosphere throughout was one of festivity. The guests ate to the accompaniment of traditional music, and under the benign eye of Lord for the Day, Mr. Dick Grimes, Chief Inspector of the Department of Education, Mr. Martin Gleeson and Miss Roach. Back to Limerick and another reception, this time as the guests of the Limerick Corporation. Among those present were the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Finance, Mr. Donogh O'Malley, here having a conversation with the Deputy Mayor in which at least one diner showed an obvious lack of interest. On the following day, a visit to the Shannon Industrial Zone on the brink of the Atlantic Ocean. Here, manufacturers of many nationalities have come to avail of generous concessions offered by the Irish government and the ready supply of skilled labour. Some of our foreign friends engage in one game they found they had in common. The skills of the young apprentices of today will be in increasing demand here, where several new factories already employ thousands of Irish workers, and more factories are now being constructed in full confidence of an expanding future. Northwards to Galway, the city of the tribes. Here too, the local corporation extended a céad míle fáilte to their foreign guests. Although during the afternoon tour of the famed Corrib country, Mother Nature was not so generous. Having toured the Corrib country, the delegates came back to Galway. This is the Galway salmon weir, always an attraction for visitors and natives alike. That evening, at the Great Southern Hotel in Galway, the guests were welcomed in the Irish language by An Talamh Ó Buachalla, Cathaoirleach of Shanad Éireann, and Vice Chairman of the Galway Vocational Education Committee. How to make Gaelic coffee. First, heat the glass over a flame. Add the whiskey, then the coffee. And ever so gently, pour the cream over a spoon, which should be just touching the top of the liquid, so that the cream will stay afloat. Good, isn't it? The Mayor of Galway, Mr. Dively, expresses his city's pride at entertaining the foreign and Irish representatives of technical education. And the President of the Chamber of Commerce speaks of Galway's industrial expansion and wishes the visitors a fruitful stay in the Emerald Isle. But now the important people arrive, the apprentices themselves. Among the first to land were those who had travelled farthest, the team from Japan. Then the boys from the Federal Republic of Germany. Mr. Martin Gleeson, chairman of the Irish National Committee, comes out to greet the Spaniards, led by the president of the International Organizing Committee, Senor Eugenio Lopez. With greetings exchanged and the inevitable snapshots taken, attention is turned to the toolkits, a vital part of the craftsman's trade. "20 miles north of Dublin, in the rich Meath countryside, Gormanston College was the home of the 240 apprentices from 13 countries. Here, on Sunday 7th July, the opening ceremony of the 12th International Trade Competition for Apprentices was performed. Introducing Dr. P.J. Hillary, Minister for Education, Mr. Martin Gleeson spoke of the usefulness of the competitions, which enable comparisons to be made, ideas to be exchanged, and skills to be matched. Dr. Hillary, greeting the competing countries by name, called on the President of the Irish National Organizing Committee, Mr. Michael J. Flanagan, to acknowledge the applause for the Irish team. Then Dr. Hillary formally declared the competitions to be underway. Senor Lopez referred to Ireland as an historic country, situated between the old and new worlds, and said that all the competing nations were pleased that the current competitions were being held here. Mr. Flanagan said that Ireland had greatly benefited from past competition experience and that they were now delighted to be the host country. In the College of Technology in Bolton Street, with its recently completed £1 million wing and thousands of pounds worth of new machines and equipment, everything was in readiness to stage the largest international apprentices competition yet held. This was also the first such competition to be held outside continental Europe. Senor Lopez arrives with interpreter Miss Roach. For plenary sessions in one of the college theatres, special equipment had been installed, which provided simultaneous translations into several languages, which each official, with his headphones and miniature wireless set, could select at will. Meantime, Mr. Ward in the storeroom was checking out the baggage and toolkits. Positions in the workshops are allocated by lot, each apprentice drawing a number indicating where he will work. In bricklaying, the senior design was of a fireplace. Differences of approach were immediately noticeable. Some boys built vertically, others started by laying the floor. The shape of tools also varied, particularly the trowels. Here is a Spanish trowel. And now a trowel from Luxembourg. In senior carpentry, the boys get down to it in every sense of the word. They are first sketching out the design to scale, and separate marks will be awarded for this part of the work. This may take a whole day or more. The same procedure is followed in senior and junior joinery. The drawings completed, the next task is the cutting and fashioning of the parts. Ireland's representative in machine drawing was Pat McCarthy from Killarney. Here, too, the toolkits contained surprises. Like this feather used by the Japanese competitor. Physical energy had to be allied to skill in many trades. In Linen Hall, there were the industrial and home house wiring sections, and the number and assortment of tools used by the Japanese competitor were again a revelation. The spirit of international cooperation is exemplified by instructor Anthony O'Toole and helper Vincent Murphy assisting Sanchez Lopez from Spain. Aer Lingus, Irish International Airlines, entertained the boys to lunch in Collinstown. They were later taken on a tour of the airport, including the workshops where Aer Lingus train their own apprentices. And for this Japanese arc welder, it was a busman's holiday. Back to work, this time to industrial forging, where Jose Javier Barrera of Spain demonstrates his skill. George McGrain of Dublin, whose grandfather trained George's present instructor. There was one competition for gas welding and 2 separate categories in electric welding. The number of entries for these crafts and the closeness of the marking resulted in 2 bronze medals being awarded for gas welding and 2 silver medals being presented in category B for electric welding. Here is Ireland's Paddy Sands at work. And from Japan, Shigeo Kanda and Ryuji Yashiro. Gormanston College, which is run by the Franciscan Fathers, was an ideal temporary home for the apprentices. It offered the most up-to-date facilities, including a spacious dining hall, indoor recreation rooms, and a heated swimming pool. And also a front steps, wide enough to hold all the apprentices for the taking of the souvenir photograph. As the work progressed, each item was examined. So the joins and measurements of this piece, part of a wicker gate, are tested during the competition and marks awarded accordingly. This practice of marking while the boys worked on with other jobs obtained in all sections, in this case the plumbing room. But today is a half day, time for relaxation. So down to Glendalough, the Glen of the Two Lakes, one of the many beauty spots in County Wicklow. Just 30 miles from Dublin, the centuries-old ruins were once the home of the noted hermit and churchman St. Kevin. As usual, the inveterate cameramen, the Japanese, found much to photograph. Then to Bray, where all the visitors were guests of Bord Fáilte Éireann in the International Hotel. Here one must pay tribute to the many Irish firms who so generously contributed to the success of this notable occasion. In the newly equipped moulding shop, Mr. Gribben, supervisor, and Mr. Christy Duffy, instructor, remove the molten lead from the furnace. Ireland's representative, Tommy O'Brien from CIE. The test piece was a wheel, and here is one of the opened moulds. The stonecutters sported a colourful variety of clothing. Christopher Box from England. Frieda Lippert from Germany. And in the beret, the Italian apprentice. Ambassadors from several of the competing countries visited Bolton Street during the week, and in the painting competition it was obvious that the Irish design had been accepted. The distinguished visitors saw the industrial wiring section and this Austrian apprentice. And they watched the Irish entrant nearing the completion of his house wiring test. In woodwork events also, the finished products were beginning to take shape. As a fine gesture of thanks for the facilities extended by Bolton Street College of Technology, Yesenia Lopez presented a silver inscribed plaque to the principal, Mr. Donald F. O'Dwyer. At the Mansion House, Dublin's Lord Mayor Alderman Sean Moore welcomed the foreign officials who came to convey greetings from the first citizens of their hometowns in 12 countries. The apprentices also came to the mansion house bearing gifts typical of the arts and crafts of their native lands. Each was presented by Alderman Moore with a wooden souvenir of hurling, Ireland's national game. And as an extra memento of their visit, many of them took away also the autograph of the Lord Mayor of Dublin. The harp had been added to the shamrocks when Mr. Jack Lynch, Minister for Industry and Commerce, and Dr. Hillary visited the college. The ministers greeted the volunteer members of the civil defence who were on duty at all times with a qualified doctor and nursing staff, and Mr. Lynch was prevailed on to try out the resuscitation apparatus, much to the amusement of his fellow minister. Oliver Pickett represented Ireland in milling. Several machines such as this were purchased to cater for the competitions. The result is that Bolton Street is now one of the best equipped schools in Europe. Precision with machines, skill with hands, as these young jewellers work away on making a brooch. In this field, David Ryan represented Ireland. From jewellers to silversmiths. Here the test piece was a chalice, and the Irish apprentice Patrick Campbell is about to braze the completed bowl and stand. Throughout the week, the kitchen staff, augmented by the chaplain Father McAvoy, served snacks to the officials in the college canteen, while the boys, to save time, were given refreshments in the workshops. Yes, that is a fascinating collection of planes. They are all the property of the Japanese wood pattern maker. An interesting aspect of his work is that the actual planing is done towards and not away from the body. Another unusual instrument is this double-edged saw. At Gormanston College, social functions and sporting events were held each evening as an introduction to the game of hurling, rated by many as the fastest field game in the world. Boys' teams representing Dublin and Wexford put on an exhibition match which drew the attendance of all the apprentices. In the refectory, the boys applaud as the Very Reverend Father Felix, rector of the college, receives plaques from the International Organising Committee in appreciation of the generosity of the fathers towards the apprentices and officials of the competition. A contrast in footwear, shoes from Luxembourg, from Germany and from Ireland. Joining the growing parade of visitors inspecting the craftsmanship of the boys comes the Lord Mayor of Dublin. Another innovation to Ireland was this Danish bow saw. Francis Caulfield demonstrates his own invention. For cramping up, he uses two magnetized pieces of wood which hold their positions and protect the cramped wood as well. More machines, this time in the turning workshop. As each apprentice completes his test pieces, they are stamped with his working number, a vital precaution because the pieces made by each boy should and may be exactly alike. The examination of the finished work in all competitions is extremely thorough. The real test of a welding job is not its outward appearance, but its inner strength. So X-ray equipment was employed so that all welding pieces would be subjected to the closest scrutiny. The competitions over, most of the officials and all the apprentices set out for a tour of the south, while back in Dublin, the examiners, drawn from different countries, get down to their task of selecting the prize winners. Cork Corporation and Cork Industry responded to the visit by sponsoring trips and receptions. A boat tour of Cork Harbour brought the party to the Verome dockyard, which can build ships up to 60,000 tons dead weight and employs over 1,000 men. Irish Shell, Irish Dunlop and Henry Ford & Son also sponsored the tour, including a trip to Heaven's Reflex, the world-famous Killarney, whose varied beauty of form and colour of its mountains and lakes has long challenged the poets and painters of many lands. And all the while there was music in the air, as the hills and valleys echoed to the songs of people of many races, including some born in County Kerry itself. The train journey back to Dublin was broken by a visit to one of Bolton peat stations at Tullamore, County Offaly. Producing 1 million tonnes of powdered peat annually, Bolton employs 6,000 people, and its peat produces 40% of Ireland's electric power. Croke Park, Dublin, headquarters of the Gaelic Athletic Association. The international apprentices were present to see the final of the Leinster Senior Gaelic Football Championship between Dublin and Laois. The foreign officials seemed to take the game as seriously as the players. But for once in the week, Mr. Gleeson and Mr. Barry relaxed. It's all so puzzling to the Portuguese, but whenever a score came, everyone knew how to show his appreciation. Dublin's Gresham Hotel was the venue for the reception given by the Dublin Congress of Trade Unions. It was indeed fitting that the Dublin trade union movement, which this year celebrates its golden anniversary, should be hosts to younger trade apprentices from many countries, each of which in turn gave a performance of some of its national songs. The Irish Sugar Company gave a dinner in the Intercontinental Hotel, at which Mr. Jack Barry, Director of Organisation, paid deserved tribute to the many Irish officials and committees who had helped to make the competition an outstanding success. And the festivities concluded with some traditional Irish dancing. On Tuachtarán, Eamon de Valera came to Dublin Castle to present the awards before a distinguished gathering of church and state. On Tuachtarán thanked the International Organising Committee for choosing Ireland as the venue for the 1963 competition. The Irish were proud to have been their hosts and pray that all the young craftsmen and their countries may grow in skill and prosperity. First to receive a gold medal was Tadashi Uchiyama from Japan, and this was indeed appropriate, because out of 38 gold medals awarded, the Japanese won 10. The next highest number of gold medals went to Ireland, with a grand total of 7 gold, 7 silver, and 4 bronze medals. Germany was third with 4 gold, 3 silver, and 7 bronze. Great Britain also took away 4 gold medals, and Spain and Switzerland shared 5th place with 3 gold medals each. The achievements of the Irish apprentices in the 1963 competitions set a high target for their younger brothers in the years ahead. The final act was a presentation to the President of Ireland by Senor Lopez, President of the International Organising Committee. All of the prize-winning test pieces were put on public display in Bolton Street College of Technology, where they were inspected by Mr. de Valera. The Irish gold medal winners were Patrick Sands, electric welding, Patrick Higgins, plumbing, William Ward, constructional steelwork, Aidan Halpin, joinery, Thomas O'Brien, carpentry, John Higgins, bricklaying, and John Curry, house wiring. The craftsman's will, the craftsman's skill are prized the whole world over still. His works our lives with beauty fill. Let's honour him, the craftsman. With steady hand and ready mind, and soul by tutored toil refined, where art and science meet and blend, and brain and brawn their helping lend, there peace and plenty will attend the staunch, devoted craftsman.